I had one of I don't know why, like, I guess the trend with us is like before we talk to each other, I happen to have another one of those like 3 o'clock in the morning wake up nights. Actually, I think I woke up at 2 and just kind of like laid in bed till about 3. And then it was kind of like, okay, get up, go and your body just needs a little like stretching. Like I felt like I needed to do some breathing to shake out some energy. And then I did some meditating and then went back to bed. And then of course after that there was like a whole download of stuff that came after I had that, that stillness, that place of stillness with the meditation and well after the body movement, and then being in that place of stillness, and then it was just a total rush of downloads, and I was like, how perfect is this? I'm meeting up with Kari today.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like
Well, and the
that.
way that well, as you say it, like the visual I get is right, like this download is coming or it's here, like, I'm ready for Vanessa, nudge, 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 nudge. And then you wake up and you actually respond to that in whatever came up in the moment, which was getting up and stretching. And to me, I visualize you like moving your energy, right? Starting to get it to move and to flow so that, right, you can pull in that new thing, which so fun.
Yeah, it
How are
was.
you feeling?
So I am feeling, I don't know if I can quite um, share with words, but I'll share what my experience was. I had this experience of what I feel like is going to be a new practice, or at least something that I'm going to devote to doing more often. And this is kind of an extension of what I have been doing once in a while. And this is where, I always, I love that, my goal for this past year has been to see oneness in all, really just for me to like learn how to connect and let go of the idea of separation, and really allow myself to see that, yes, even though, my mind, my brain's mind sees us as like separate bodies, separate beings, and really be able to kind of say, okay, even though I'm seeing this spiritually, there's a deep knowing that we're all connected. And so I have this practice where I practice Reiki on myself, and at the same time, I'm offering Reiki to the universe. To sometimes I'll picture the globe, and I'll offer Reiki to the world, right? And it's so interesting because I always talk about like offering love, like sending love, and today's kind of what came up for me was this idea of receiving. And this is something I've been practicing for this past year, is kind of transitioning out of the the more masculine way of being, of like go go go, and yeah, like offering, being in that mode of doing, and learning how to receive guidance, receive life, to really allow myself to see how things can be easy, and I don't actually have to effort into creating it, right? So really coming from that place of receiving. And ooh, I'm gonna get a little emotional, but this morning, I don't know, like I was guided to, when I was sitting there, I had just done kind of, I felt some stiffness in my body, and I hadn't done any yoga in a while. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do some stretching and just really kind of breathe into those places. And I find I love breathing in to my body, because that's like food, right? Like it's medicine for my body. And so once I kind of sat in that place of stillness, it was really fun to just feel the vibrations in my body just settling in. And then I started to have these images of people in my mind, um, and it was kind of like I noticed a bit of a resistance to these people in my mind because there's like previous mentors, previous coaches that I had, and I've always had this thing with authority. So anyone that's kind of been an authority figure, somehow like I like attach to them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I love them, I love them, I love them, and then I kind of come to a space where I'm just like, no, I don't need them anymore. No, like I'm good on my own. And then my way of kind of separating myself from them is just like, no, just cut them off kind of thing, right?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so I noticed that these images of people were kind of coming up, and I noticed myself resisting it. And then I'm in this transition with my business, and um, the last thing that kind of came up for me was this sense of like earning more in my business, um, and how for a time I had said, it's not about the money, and I really just am good with receiving whatever, right? But it was just so interesting how my mind still wanted to go to like making a lot of money and helping a lot of people. And then so I was just like, okay, instead of resisting it, what if I allowed myself to want to have it? What if I allowed myself to like say it's okay to have it? And then
Of
so this
what?
image, what was it?
Of what?
Have lots
Mm.
of money, and then have these people in my life, have
Mm.
all these images of people. So it was kind of like it started off with the money thing. I what naturally happened was this kind of like, okay, um it was something that I learned with anytime that there's like a resistance, it's like, okay, if I resist it, let's bring it in. And in what ways do I actually really want this? In what ways
Mm.
do I actually really want to make lots of money? And I could sense that my body was resisting it, but it was kind of, I was being asked to come from a place of like this, I'm a mother to it, and I'm just receiving it, and I'm just allowing myself to like
Mm.
hold, and not making needing of it. It really allowed myself to drop into my body and just kind of being in that place of like, I'm just gonna like absorb it with this love that I have. So yeah, it's hard to describe, but that was kind of the sense of like, okay, let's allow myself to think about, you know, making like, because I had made like 100K last year, and it was just kind of like, well, what about this year? Like, am I allowing myself to, because I had really kind of dropped all of my all of the ways that I wanted to do, like all the strategies and things, all the ways of to do certain things. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, what if I just allow myself to have all of that again? Right?
Mm.
Like I was just kind of like distancing myself from it for this year,
Mhm.
of just detaching from all things from that place of need.
Right.
And so I was just kind of like, okay, now I'm ready to like receive it all. But from this place of like, I'm here to just
Mm.
absorb all of it. And it's so really being in that place of receiving. So
Mm.
it was so interesting because I felt the resistance, and then it just kind of like dissipated. And it almost kind of like this, my heart was just melting it all away. And I can feel it. And, and then I would picture one of my coaches, and I would just be like, okay, yeah, no, come on in, come on in. And then it was kind of like, just I could feel the resistance, but then as I was holding it and just not judging it, just being like, hey, I'm just going to receive you, I'm just going to hold you, and then feeling that melting away. And then it was so interesting because then I brought in my dad, because my dad has always been a figure for me that I resisted, that I had, a lot of kind of dynamics with. And so, yeah, it was so neat to receive him and to be like, oh, yeah, like nothing has to change. Like, if anything, it's like, I'm here to receive. I'm here to receive all the love that you have to offer, yeah, it was just kind of like receiving the love of everything that I was resisting. So it was really interesting experience. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to share there.
I love it because I mean, even just hearing you say it, it's like creating like I don't know what's coming up for me, right? Like I feel the connectivity to what you're saying, and then I'm looking at my life in the last 24 hours, more like the last, I don't know, since this morning, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like the mirroring of it, like seeing
Mhm.
how the same is true in my life of showing up a certain way in my life and believing a certain way, and then at one point being like, hold on, like what do I really want, or what do I really believe, or does that like kind of the same where you're like, here's the mentor that I've been believing and following,
Yes.
and then right, it's and I'll compare it to my husband, where we're at right now in our relationship. It's like there had been for many years, I mean, probably 15 years of our marriage, where it was like, you know, just following each other, listening to each other, kind of being on the same page with like all the
Mhm.
beliefs and everything. And then at some point it was like, I don't know, it's almost like I stepped out for a minute to see like, what does Carrie believe?
Yeah.
Like, where am I at? Like, do I like this? Is it serving me? Do I want to believe this? Do I want to believe something new? And then creating some new belief systems, and which at least in the relationship, and it sounds like it can be similar to you with the mentor, it's like it almost creates a distancing in that relationship, even if you're not
Mhm.
like contacting them, right? It still is like a
Yeah.
distancing.
Yeah.
And then what happened today was the reintegration of like, but like, what do I want now?
Mhm.
And the inviting them in. I think that's kind of what happened here in the last couple of hours, is just that opening up to, I guess for me, I think the bigger thing for me, and maybe this is kind of similar to you, for me, I was like, I don't want to give up what I've learned out here on my own
Yeah.
just to be able to reconnect here and like mend this
Mhm.
relationship. But can I hold space for holding what I want? And can I create connection in a relationship still?
Mhm.
And all that took for me, at least, was being willing to like have that conversation. It's almost like you just sitting there and being willing to say, I'm open to this,
Yeah.
right? And what it's created, at least where we're at now, is just like this beauty. It's like it's such a different layer of like, I didn't have to leave myself in order
Mhm.
to find connection with someone else,
Yeah.
which in the past I would have thought, well, that's connection.
Yes.
But now I'm like, I don't want to leave myself.
Yeah.
And I can create connection on top of that. Like it's an expanding,
Mhm.
which that's at least some of what comes to my mind, like with your dad, and that it's like there's just you're bringing in more space for more. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, definitely. And that was, yeah, like I think for me it was very much like there was this sense of like it's safe for me to open, yeah, having that openness right now. It's safe for me to open myself up to receiving this love,
Mhm.
and to see that this person loves me back. And I think, even with my mentors, there was always kind of like this need to prove, need to like succeed in order for any authority figure to love me. And so it was really interesting to, yeah, be in that space of like, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to change who I am. And I just get to receive it all. And that I'm actually not waiting for them, right, to do anything.
Mm.
Um, and that I just get to be me, and then dropping into that belief that we are all one, um, and that we're all connected, and that in that sense, like I actually hold that power to receive the love, right? Like that it isn't very it isn't a separate thing that that I have to attain or anything. It's very much in my power to have it all now.
Mm.
Um,
Tell me,
yeah.
keep going into that. Like, I don't know, I'm curious more about that oneness and like
Yeah.
what that means to you.
Yeah, so I believe like for me, learning Reiki had really helped me understand energy. I think before I learned Reiki, it was very much just I didn't understand energetics as at all. And of course, like I think quantum physics helps a little bit. Like knowledge in quantum physics helps kind of my logical brain also see that okay, we're all connected, and that everything that we see are actual multiple versions. There's just um, not to get too into the details, but
No,
really,
there's part of me that's almost like, some of the people, at least on my end, that might come and watch this might even be like, what is Reiki? Right?
yeah, yeah.
So I
So
don't know if you're
Reiki,
wanting to, I think there could be some space to geek out a little bit.
yeah, okay. Well, Reiki, like, yeah. So for me, um, even before I learned about what Reiki was, I always had a sense that there was energy coming through my hands, through my palms, and um, that there's this. Maybe it's part of my culture too, with Chinese background. I've heard of this concept of chi energy, that there is this like that we're all kind of we've got this energy, this aura kind of within each one of us, and that if our chi is not so good, then that's where we might feel ailments in our body or dis-ease in our body. But when our chi is strong, that's where it's like it's vibrant, and we're living a vital life. And so that was kind of the only concept of energy. And then of course, like through school, learning about physics and chemistry, right, that there's that sense. So it was kind of like understanding that somehow I could feel vibrations. Like you can even try this. If you put your palms together and then you pull it apart, and then I just invite you to notice the energy between the palms as you kind of put your palms closer together, whether you actually feel anything in between. There's a little bit of tingling vibration. So if you feel any of that, that's the
Even at that
energy.
very first, there was like a faint, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
like some sort of almost like a little bit of resistance or something.
Mhm.
Almost like you could feel a substance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that there is, yeah. So with chi energy, they say it's kind of like a ball of energy. So it's almost like you could feel the ball of energy. So anyhow, through that, yeah, as a kid, I don't know, like I would put my hand on people, on things, right? Like, when we rest our hand on someone's
Mhm.
shoulder, it's very natural for us, right? And so my first experience of this energy being a healing energy was when my dad actually had a throat infection. He was in the hospital. And when I went to visit him one time, I just felt called to rest my palms on his neck, on his throat.
Mm.
And then the next day he went in for surgery, and he was good. But it was so interesting because after that, I started having a throat, like little something in my throat. Like like it was starting to feel scratchy and a little kind of congested. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? Like maybe I just didn't know how to work with this energy, and somehow I like transferred it to myself, right? And so
Mm.
that was kind of my first sense of like, oh, there's something here. And then when I learned about Reiki, so Reiki is a Japanese stress reduction technique, and it is through energy through your palms. And it's from this concept of that we are all energy beings, and we can be channels of that energy, of this life force that's all
Mm.
around us. So what happens is, because we are energy beings, like I like to visualize it as like we're little atoms and particles vibrating really close together, and that makes us solid, right? So if
Mm.
I look at my table, all these
Mhm.
particles are vibrating really close together, and so it becomes solid.
Right.
But air, we know, is all particles, right? And so in a sense, we're all particles. Some
Mhm.
In some spaces we're just more condensed,
Mhm.
and in others it's just more spread apart. So naturally we are actually all connected in that sense.
Mm.
So that to me just kind of blew my own mind when I first kind of understood that. Like,
Mm.
oh, so what I'm doing is just I'm channeling the energy
Mm.
that's around me through my chakras, and then it comes through my palm, and that's where it's concentrated, in that sense, concentrated. But
Right.
that's where it's like, and what I love about Reiki is, so you're channeling. So I'm not actually doing anything. It's just I'm the vessel, and I can channel then that energy onto someone else who is asking to receive, um, and wanting to reduce stress, wanting to clear their chakras. And the chakras are energy centers. They're certain points in our body. So you've got the crown, you've got the third eye, you've got your throat, heart, your solar plexus, um, your sacral, and then your root. Okay, so those are the 7 chakras. And so with Reiki, you can, we have certain areas where we might feel blocked, and so with Reiki, it helps to clear the channels there.
Mm.
So that for me was like learning how to actually channel that allow me to learn that, oh, okay, I always have this love. Like I really see it as love energy. I'm just channeling love.
Mm.
And so, and that it's abundant. That for me really kind of helped teach me the abundance of love, that it's always giving. And the beauty of Reiki is that even though I'm being a channel and I'm offering Reiki, I'm also receiving Reiki at the same time. So I'm receiving that healing at the
Yeah.
same time. So
Mm.
that's where it's like that to me kind of taught me the sense of like what unconditional love is. Like intellectually we know what unconditional love, but through offering Reiki, I've been able to experience what unconditional love actually means in on a kind of more cellular, visceral, spiritual sense
Mm.
of like it's always abundant. And
Well, and it makes me think of, unconditional love can be defined as like love without conditions.
mhm,
Right? It's not like, well, you're giving here, right? like it has a condition, like it can't enter, like it's without conditions, like it can be
Yes. There's no
omnipresent in the
boundaries. Yeah.
moment. That's
Yeah.
really powerful.
Yeah.
And I've heard a
So
lot of people that do, any type of work like this, like the Reiki or foot zoning, which is kind of like reflexology, or the emotional release therapy that I do. I even think just like coaching, where oftentimes when we're giving of that, right, we're holding space for someone and like helping them start to move that energy or work through what they need to work through. Like we get to receive that for ourselves in that session as well.
yes, totally.
And I think there's a powerful like level here, or maybe, a great opportunity for us, especially those that are doing this work, is bringing your awareness to your own healing that's occurring in the session.
Yeah.
At least for me, as I've stepped into that more, I don't know, it's helped me see where I'm healing and I'm working through things, and maybe some of my beliefs are changing, or where my emotional state is, and to see that I can do that while I'm holding space or
Yes.
working with someone, as opposed to like I've got to be here for you and I'm going to like,
Yes.
I mean, it still may be happening, but there's a portion, I think, where we tell ourselves we have to like shut off to ourselves in order to help someone. Kind of
Yeah.
like what I was saying with my husband. It's like I have to give up myself
Mhm.
and then create the ability to love you in the way that you want.
Yeah.
But what's true and what I'm hearing with you is that like unconditional love is like there's not conditions here. Like, why are we
Yeah.
putting conditions on this?
Yeah.
What if you could have all the things you want for you, and we can create love, and like we can have, right, this like in and out, this reciprocation as you heal the world through your Reiki, opening up to breathing in that love is here and you're part of the world, right?
Yeah. Totally. And I think you really touched on something as, as healers, as coaches, as, service providers. I think this is where, um, I can't speak for everyone, but I've totally fell into that belief that like have I have to constantly be offering. I have to constantly be like, putting value out there. And I think this is where from if I'm operating from that space, that's where I feel totally burnt out and drained
Mm,
of energy. But then when I allow myself to like, see Reiki in all of life, right? See Reiki in coaching, see Reiki like that concept of unconditional love, that I'm always abundant of love. So I'm not actually using up any energy, just like you said, like,
mm,
holding space for a coaching session, really being able to see how, yeah, I'm also receiving at the same time. So that's where it's like it's always flowing in and out, flowing in and out. And I'm receiving and I'm offering, I'm receiving at the same time as offering. So there's this, yeah, there's this infinite amount of energy, and that's love in
mm,
general. Like I don't think we can ever really describe love properly, but we could use words to describe it. And for me, like it's just this infinite amount, like it's always abundant. And I think for me, like I really want to learn to accept it, accept
mm.
that. Yeah. And
Which
that,
is
like you said, it's not like I have to separate myself, or I have to give myself away, like be
mm,
someone else, or mold myself in order to fit someone else's box in order for them to like receive the love. It's like, no, I get just to be me
mm,
here. I don't have to actually do anything except with have that intention of like, I'm here to receive and offer love at the same time.
yeah, I don't know. I'm loving this concept, and it's come into my life a lot the last couple months. In October, I went to California to where I'm learning the emotional release
Yes.
therapy. And I remember talking to Pat Jackman, and she's the creator of all of it. And I was just like, I have these goals, and like, I want to take this to the world, and like, I'm the only one in Utah doing this, and like, how are people gonna find me? And all these things was a lot of the drama. And she was just like, Kari, just do your own work.
Yeah.
Just go work on healing yourself, and those things will happen.
Mhm.
And she talked about like that's the time when it was like when you're doing a session on someone, I really want you to see yourself in the person that you're healing and listen to their words,
Yeah.
because the universe, God, like I think, and I've seen it so much that it's like it's true, is bringing people into my life as I'm wanting to heal others. It's like really
Yeah.
bringing the people into my life to help me see myself more clearly.
Mhm.
And it's opened up this door as I've invited myself to be in the room. I'm like, oh, wow, those are the words I say. Oh, that's like exactly where I'm at right now. It's almost like, let's listen a little bit closer, right?
Yes.
Because what you said in this work so often, it's a channeling,
Yeah.
not my words that come out in a session
Yeah.
when I'm the one like coaching. It's just that channeling. And it's like when we tune our ears to be in that,
Yeah.
knowing love has no bounds and we can hold space
Yeah.
for someone, how awesome is that we get to have additional healing throughout our life instead of, like you say, closing off and burning ourselves out and giving everything to everybody else, hoping that one day somehow love is going to appear.
Yeah. 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 No, I think that that's like so much more freeing, right? And I think I don't know if you've noticed how your sessions have shifted, because I've definitely felt my sessions, like, with my clients shifting once I, like, stepped out of the conditional of, like, I'm here as a coach, and I'm here to hold space, and there's only certain things I can ask you, and there's certain things I can say, and, really letting go of, like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking about myself at the same time. It's like, no, okay, what if I allow myself to see that this is a collaborative, yeah, like this is where we are all meant to co-create together. And as energy beings, when we're in a space
Mhm.
together, that's us working together. That's our energy
Mhm.
kind of doing its thing,
So I
and
almost,
allowing for that. Yeah.
and I want to say something after I ask, but I would love to hear more of what you've seen shift for you when you've opened that ability up to like kind of hold space for you in this session. But what I want to maybe preface it with is, because a lot of people that maybe I interact with, they have kids and they have these lives, and they're like kind of doing what you said with business, where it's like I give, 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 not letting me be included in this like flow of energy of love. And then like I'm burned out and exhausted. And we're
Mhm.
doing it, I think, from a place of like, I'm supposed to serve and give and be
Mhm.
selfless.
Mhm.
But we actually just stop including ourselves in the healing process. And I watch as these moms just get exhausted and burned out and then maybe resentful or maybe push away. So I
Yeah.
guess why I ask it is like almost any of us that are maybe in that situation as moms or comparing it to your own business or whatever is what happens when someone decides to open up to themselves
Mhm.
this container where you're kind of in that like I'm here to actually help you, but also I don't know if
Mhm.
that makes sense. But I'm curious, yeah, what's happened to you as you've opened up.
Yeah, like, so I think for me, it was very much like, yeah, at the beginning, it was very much like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do as a coach. And I'm like following all this rule book that I had in my own mind. Right. But I think this is where it felt like a lot of work. And I just came out of like what I felt like I didn't know it was burnout until like reflecting back at my last year, like just this whole year, how I felt like I needed to just disconnect from everything, um, was a sign of me burnt out from thinking that I had to share and be of service in a certain way, that I was just like, okay, well, what is it like if I just stop being of, of service altogether, or like letting go of that being an intention, go of that being a goal, right? And that for me was just already something that was a different experience for me, because then it was like less, I stopped kind of going out to like serve and really just allowed the universe to show me the way and for me to receive. And the clients that came, like you said, they're a beautiful mirror of kind of where I'm at the same time, right? Like, they would come to me and they're like, yeah, I want to launch this business and I just feel like I don't have the confidence, or I don't have the belief in myself. And it was so interesting because the moment that I noticed myself wanting to get into goals and wanting to help them like think of the future, um, it was just kind of like my own work of like, no, bringing yourself back to the present moment, bringing yourself back to what is how this moment is the only moment that ever matters.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was kind of like you said, being in that channel, listening to myself at the same time. Notice how I would have normally kind of like driven the coaching sessions to kind of like create an end result.
Mm.
So now it's very much like come as you are. There's no like we need to like get through something, we need to have a decision made or anything. It's very much like, yeah, come as you are. And I'm just gonna hear and listen. And at the same time, I'm listening to guidance and offering. And at the same time, as I'm offering, it's kind of like I'm an observer of the session happening.
Mm.
In my mind, I'm also kind of like learning from it at the same time and hearing what I'm sharing, hearing what my clients are saying back. And
Mhm.
from that, kind of like there's this natural ebb and flow of, like I could totally feel their spirit kind of being channeled through. I could, when fear shows up, it's like, we both sense the energy, and
Mm.
it's like, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, I sense their resistance. So here I am. I'm going to I feel the resistance as well, but I'm going to like be conscious of allowing the resistance to be here
Mm.
and not wanting to change anything, holding space for that resistance. And naturally, it's like we are doing this dance here. Like you're
Mm.
unable to kind of respond to this resistance right now. Allow me to hold
Mm.
that resistance for you.
Mm.
Allow me to kind of keep it safe for now until you're ready to kind of, and it's really neat because when they're ready to kind of say, hey, like I'm open to kind of seeing this fear, and let's drop into the body and actually feel the fear, feel the resistance, then it's like then I'm passing that energy back to
Mhm.
them, to like, because I've already kind of shown that it's safe to do so. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like this invisible energy that's kind of like transferring and transmuting at the same time. It's like this beautiful dance of like, yeah. So just you being able to kind of use my own work, noticing my own judgments on things, right? And And in that moment, being able to shift at the same time, because I'm allowing things to be, because I'm not wanting a certain goal or anything. It's just like the present moment is what's most important right now. Whatever we're feeling is important, is valid, and just allowing that to be here. I don't know if I really explained it, but I think for me, that has been the shift, is really just seeing it as like a co-creation, seeing it as a dance instead of like, oh, client comes with a question, I'm here to help them find the answer. It's like, what if there's, even if they have a question, it's kind of like, let's feel into what the question is and allowing for that answer to come through beyond the session, beyond here and now, and just trust
Right.
that the answer will come. Let's not try to figure it out right now. It's more just, let's just be with it, and allow whatever wants to come to come. Yeah.
I don't know, as you were describing the fear and like when a client's in fear and how you're just holding that for them until they're ready. Like,
Mhm.
I know that was such a beautiful image. And I don't know, there's a lot going through my mind with that. One of them is this idea of, I mean, I've heard it said that oftentimes we can't necessarily, like, it's hard to, let's say, coach someone where you haven't necessarily gone there yourself. You know what I mean? And there's been some sessions that I've been in, and it still comes up because we're always working on ourselves, where it's almost like I feel like there's not that connection or the cohesion or the ability to work through
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
And it's what I see now, it's almost like I don't know how to hold this myself, right? Like, let's say it was fear. Like, I've never really stopped and held my fear. Like, I don't know how to hold it for you. And they're like, I don't know how to hold it for myself.
Mhm.
But even in that, to see that as like, it's still information and it's still
Yeah.
understanding. And oh, interesting. When fear came up, I had a hard time holding it, right? Like, I kind
Yeah.
of wanted to, I hope they would hold it or hold my fear too.
Yeah.
But as we do this work on ourselves, and a lot of the stuff I do, and you're right there, like with all the emotional work, is we just create more and more space to hold emotion.
Mhm.
And the word softness came up this last weekend, which a client said it, like she can do hard things because underneath everything she's soft, and softness is flexibility, and it's like able to hold things where when we're rigid, right, or too structured, or we're afraid, it's like creates this tension,
Yeah.
and we can't, nothing can come into us, right, but we also can't really offer anything there.
Yeah.
And I had this image of like, you know, my kids came in first to my mind, like, oh, like maybe that's why oftentimes they come to me, is
Mhm.
there's this like, I can hold this.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not going to throw it back at you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. And we can just be with it until, like you said, maybe they're ready to look at it on their own.
Yeah.
But a lot of it comes, I mean, from us or you doing your own work with your own
Mhm.
fear. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's such a beautiful imagery that you gave.
Yeah. What, like something that you had shared, this idea of, I've had this experience before too. And within a session where it's like, it feels like there's that, yeah, discomfort that we're both feeling. And it's kind of like, well, I'm feeling a fear, you're feeling a fear. And I almost see that as a invitation for the both of us to work through it together. And I've had this experience before where, I'm inviting them to kind of get in touch with where they feel the emotion in their body. And I don't know, but time and time again, it's like wherever they're feeling it, I'm feeling it in the same spot in my
Mm,
body as well. So if it's like tightness in the chest, it's like, oh, okay, I can feel it. And so as I'm guiding them, I'm guiding myself at the same time
mm,
through processing that emotion. And it's really neat experience because it's like having someone else to do this together with you is so powerful at the same time because you feel like there's also this kind of, at least what I believe is like there's this subconscious kind of sense of like I'm not alone, that I'm in this together with someone else. And that's what I that's what kind of what came out from this download that I had in the middle of the night, was just having these group sessions where we're all kind of doing this together wherever we're feeling. I think that it's just so powerful to be able to experience that. So yeah.
No, I think, I don't know, I love that invitation. And because I've been in sessions too where I'll start walking them through an emotion. This is more like, I mean, I've noticed other places, but for some reason when I'm like coaching online, and it's like, yeah, I start to sense it in me and I'm
Yeah.
breathing through it and doing the thing. But I don't think I fully connected to, like, I guess what came here as you were talking was like, oh, like I've got some fear in my body. And we're talking about fear. So maybe it's like, hey, I'm gonna like an invite for fear to come up to the surface, which you kind of helped me with that, like seeing these things as little like beings or parts of us. It's like maybe we're like, oh, we invited fear and we're looking at fear. So mine is gonna come up if it's there.
Yes.
And seeing that as like taking that as an opportunity to say, I'm going to be talking through my client through this, and I'm going to like be breathing through this myself and like letting myself have my own experience with fear
Yeah.
together. And I think, I don't know, and because I work with a lot of parents, it's like doing that with our children,
Yes.
right? When their little things come up of fear, insecurities, we're probably going to feel it too.
Yeah.
Right. And we can work through that like together.
Yes.
Right.
That's what I love. And that's kind of comes back to that the concept of oneness for me is really being able to see that there is no authority figure, there's no hierarchy, right? Like we're walking together on this journey. Just because I'm sitting here as a coach, or if I'm sitting here as a mother to a kid, it's like just because I have more experience here does not mean that I'm more qualified to do this. It's like, no,
Mhm.
let's both work through it together. Let's actually, yeah, experience this together, because there's something here that both of us, like, I see whatever um what I say want to say is like I see the brilliance in you, and therefore I see the brilliance in myself. Like the concept, namaste, like,
Like I can see brilliance in you
yeah,
because there's brilliance in me.
yes.
We're
And if I believe that there's brilliance in me, I believe there's brilliance in you, right? So it's like whatever I can do, you can do as well, kind of thing. And whatever you can do, I can do as well. It's whether
mm,
I choose to do it or not, right? But
mm,
this is where at this moment we're both feeling the emotions together. We're here walking to
mm,
that to me is just so much more grounding. Um and has helped. Yeah, that's another piece of like how my sessions have shifted. It's just like less of like, oh, I'm sitting in this chair with this role and you're sitting in that
mhm,
chair with that role, right? Like it's very much like, no, as soon as we start this session, this is like a co-creation right here.
mm,
And what we're doing together, the healing that we're having together now, is going to ripple out to the rest of the world as well. And that's just a bonus.
yeah. Well, and the way that, as we're talking about it again, it's like there's no any hierarchy, right? In it. Like, no, I'm the parent or I'm the coach or I am whatever, which ends up creating a sense of separation, which keeps, I
Yes.
think, a sense of tension when we're trying to separate, right? And what you said, I think there's such beauty and beauty in the acknowledging, like, we're both here.
Mhm.
on this journey, and let's like walk together through this journey.
Mhm.
Because for whatever reasons our paths have connected right now in this emotion at this time with this event or whatever. And I think the more we can invite anyone that comes into our journey, if that's a child and you're like, okay, we're on this journey together, let's see me in this picture, as opposed to I need to be like this somehow authority or teaching you because I know more, which as parents we really don't know a whole lot because we
Yeah.
just don't. We've never experienced it. But even
Mhm.
just anyone that comes into our life, like this is helping me see me and
Yeah.
helping them see them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got all sorts of like yummy feelings when you were talking about it.
So good. And this is where we can apply the same thing to even our business. At least this is kind of where what I'm experiencing now, right? Like I'm kind of
Mm,
coming out of this, and that's the thing. I had felt so much resentment towards the coaching industry, towards, like, why did I even choose to do this in the first place if it's just going to drain me and I feel like I'm not good enough if I'm not helping enough people, like that's where, yeah, like that practice that I of just holding space and just allowing all of this resentment to be here, and I'm just going to hold it in,
mm,
and just love on it, and just receive it all, like, and not resisting that it's all part of me, and that, yeah, that it's being channeled through.
mm,
I feel like I forget what my point was, but really just allowing myself to be in that space is, um, I think is just, oh yes, back to the business piece, like being able to now, now I think that's where the download came after that, because it was just like, oh, now I'm actually ready. Because I think, a couple months ago, I was like, okay, I recognize that, oh my gosh, I don't, I, I don't want, like, there was so much resentment that I was like, I just don't want to offer coaching anymore. It's just like, I'm just going to let people if they sign up for a session with me, then okay. But I'm not going to make any offers. I'm not going to market it. I just completely stopped all my emails and all that. And so I think I was kind of, I knew that I had to go through that cycle and
mhm,
not judge that cycle, and really allow myself to be patient with it and just naturally come out of it. And I feel like this was the confirmation of that. And it was just like when that download came, it was like, oh, everything that I had kind of had received through that download felt genuine, felt like me, felt like, okay, this is what I truly want to offer. And I can offer from that place of infinite love and not feel like I'm draining myself. Because for the longest time I was like, what is the product that I'm actually selling? And I was trying to give myself, like, trying to force myself to, like, oh,
mhm.
it's self-trust, it's self-love, it's like all these things, what, like, just to label, throwing labels
Right.
out there.
Yep.
And for me, it just didn't feel genuine to what really, what I like, what really spoke to me. And then what came through was, yeah, I'm selling my belief in them. I'm selling my belief in them to connect, that they are already connected, that spirit is
Mm,
here to guide, and that it can be easy and flow. And that's where I'm like, oh, okay, I can totally, yeah, back up that. Like, I'm all for that. I'm all for, I believe in them to have everything that they already need right here, right now. Like, I'm sold on that. So that's where I was like, "Oh, okay." I
mm,
really just had to go like, allow myself to feel that resentment for me to actually move through it.
mm.
So it was really cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
now applying it to the
And this
business
is
is
what
like,
I think. Like I watched a Nova PBS on like the fabric of the cosmos and like the quantum realm and like and it talks about entanglement and all these words, but it's like, to me, it's almost like you're working through whatever that is, but there's part of you that's intertwined with someone else or all these other someone
Yeah.
else's on the other end of it. And who knows, maybe they're working through that same thing too.
Yes.
Because what happens here affects what's over here, and what happens over here affects here.
Yes.
And it just made me think like we're fighting each other here.
Yeah.
Sometimes in business, my mind will kind of go to like, oh, like I got a client, or oh, I did this, as opposed to we felt each other because we lined up in that moment and it clicked here, right? To create a space where now we're ready for each other
Yeah.
to take us both to that next level.
Totally.
And it's right when it's right.
Yeah. I
And
love
when
that.
it's not happening, stuff's happening, and that's what needs to happen. And that's why I think sometimes in business, we can tear ourselves down because we're like, I want it to happen, right? Well, like,
Yes.
well, that it is actually happening. We just don't see the other half of that that's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so good.
Yes. So good. Yeah, we gotta talk more about that. I want to know, kind of explore that a little bit more for sure. Maybe for next time. But yeah, thank you so much, Kari, for
Yeah,
this.
thank you so much.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful ride that we get to be on.
Mhm.
I really see it as like an adventure that we sign up for. And I just love that, like, being in this space of not needing to know what's next and just trusting that what's next is
Yeah,
going to be fun. So,
yeah. And if it's not happening, that's not the happening that maybe needs to happen in that moment, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe opening up to, well, what is happening actually?
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, love.
Thank you. Mwah.
Best day of my 2 weeks. My
Yes.
every week.
I love that we're doing this. Yes. Thank you.
All right. We'll see
I
ya.
will catch you all next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for